Welcome back to Trojans Live at the spring game. Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and we are thrilled to be joined by our first big man here, our first ambassador, our first legend, Tony Baselli, sits down rocking the SC baseball hat, too. There's a lot of SC baseball love going on. Did you know JJ was going to be here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, JJ's everywhere, isn't he? I mean, wherever I go, JJ's there. Plus, it's only lid I can find fitted that would fit my big head. So there's not a lot of 7 7/8 floating around.
Hey, bro, I got to ask you, how do you become an ambassador?
Mark Jackson asked you to be.
Is that what it is? Okay.
You get really,
I
really
know
good.
You're a great player and everything, but man, ambassador, that's like, I don't know if that name, legend was one.
But you guys have been here for a couple days. What's it like when this group gets together of all-time great USC players? What's the dynamic like?
It's great. It's something, I think this is the second time in the last 3 years we've gotten together, and so it seems like a little bit of like an every other year. I hope it becomes an every year deal. And my favorite thing about it is obviously coming to the spring game and being around and seeing the current guys and watching them play and just being on campus. But we have a dinner on Friday night before when everyone gets in town. And for me, who's a football junkie, and Willie McGinnis and I are, we were the youngest. Now Matt Liners, because he's retired, was hanging around and a part of it as well. But listening to the guys talk, I mean, like Sam Cunningham's my favorite. Because I remember as a freshman, they used to have in Heritage Hall, the lobby, they had this like video that you could push different things.
Right.
And I must have watched Sam Cunningham score the 5 touchdowns against Alabama 500 times. And so he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And sitting here listening to him talk, and then, as an offensive lineman, I mean, Anthony Munoz is a guy when I played here I looked up to. I think he's the greatest player to ever play the game at that position. And and we've become good friends. So it's fun. So it's fun to get together. And, me and Willie Mack were freshmen together here at SC, so it's good to get caught. That's my favorite part of the whole deal.
And that's sort of the same thing for me. I mean, when you come to USC, you become part of the history and the tradition as a player. But a lot of people don't believe it, right? I mean, I live it every day, so I obviously love it. And sort of the same thing for you. Can you sort of is it more than what you thought when you came to USC in terms of they always talk Trojan family and history and all that kind of stuff, but now that you're becoming one of them, one of the guys for these guys to look up to, how much does that mean to you?
It's a great question, JJ. I remember when on my recruiting visit, Scott Lockwood was my host because we went to the same high school in Colorado.
Yep.
And I'll never forget Rogerman, the linebacker coach, was recruiting me, and I had multiple people say, he says, let me tell you the difference between SC and UCLA. And they said, you go to UCLA, you're a Bruin for 4 years. You go to SC, you're a Trojan for life.
That's right.
And that right there stuck with me, and it's true. No matter where I am, I mean, I live all the way on the East Coast in Florida, and, we're just outside of Jacksonville, and there's Trojans there.
Yeah.
And they didn't maybe play football, but they went to school, and we see each other, and immediately it's fight on. We talk about what's going on. And I don't care where I am.
Yep.
You run into the Trojans, and there's that special bond. And then when you played the game with the guys,
right.
Even if you weren't on the same team, and I remember in the league, you see each other after games and be around. There's a Trojan family, and if you don't go here, you don't understand it, and that's fine. I don't care because we all do get it.
That's true.
Tony, we were talking to Sark earlier this week, and he brought up an interesting point. I guess he said in all of Pete Carroll's years here, he started 1 true freshman offensive lineman. Last year, the Trojans started 3. First, how hard is that to do, to start from day one as an offensive lineman, such a physical position? And then B, how much can we see those guys potentially really progress, having taken their lumps and learned it on the field last year?
So I remember I came in and I was the backup behind Pat Harlow, who ended up being a first-round draft pick. So I never played. So they ended up redshirting me. I mean, I thought I was going to play as a true freshman. I didn't, and it would have been tough. I mean, I think I would have been able to do it, but at the level those 3 guys did, that was very impressive. And I remember having a full season, and when I started the next 4 years, my redshirt freshman year, I remember coming out, and I was so much more ready. I was so much stronger, mature mentally. I'd gone through spring. I'd handled a lot of things and seen different things. I think that group is going to be really dang good.
Yeah.
And just from the year of experience, they took some lumps last year. You see things for the first time, the speed of the game. And I think they're just going to be – they'll end up being, I think, a strength on this team. And that's what needs to get back to. I think for a while here – and I think the scholarship reductions really hurt us when you talk about big guys and up front. That's 5 positions.
Yep.
There was no depth. We were very thin at a lot of positions, I think, especially the offensive defensive line. And I think it's going to allow that group can set kind of the foundation of where we're going to go and how it's been in the past years as a nasty group, a group that kind of sets the tone for how SC plays football.
And that's a great point. Is when I played here, I thought my biggest improvement in my entire football career was my freshman year at SC to my redshirt freshman year at USC. From the offensive line standpoint, what component of playing offensive line will they really benefit from after that first year going into their second year at USC from an offensive line standpoint?
I think the offensive line is, I think, the two hardest positions. Take quarterback off the board. Obviously, mentally, physically, that's the most demanding position in all of sports. Right. But after that, offensive line and I think cornerback are the two hardest positions because you're playing a lot of times in a defensive mode. Right. Because you're reacting to a player.
Right.
Offensive line, you're playing against better athletes consistently. So technique is so important. And the confidence and the reps of what you're doing are critical. And so just the reps, those guys, the physical strength and all that, maturing-wise, right. 18 to 19 is huge. But the reps on the technique at the position that is probably the most technique-rich is going to be invaluable for those guys because they've just done it so many times throughout the season. Now they've had 15 days of spring ball. I'm looking forward to seeing the group here in the spring game, and they have all fall camp.
And you mentioned it, the talent level is really growing, particularly at that position group, and it's gotten to the point where I really think they're considering playing 10 guys. Now, maybe they'll play the ones more than the twos during games, but we saw them rotate some last year. How would you have felt about that as an offensive lineman? I'm sure you wanted to play every single snap, but do you think potentially that could have helped? It could help them stay fresh. What's your thoughts on that philosophy?
I would have hated it, and I'd have been in the head coach's office saying, "If you take me out of the game, I'm going to strangle you." So I would not have been a proponent for it at all. I mean, listen, as a player, I want to get out there, and I wanted to get number one into a rhythm, and I wanted to set the tone for the game, and I wanted to try to wear that guy out across from me.
Right.
And I can't do that from the sidelines. And I took a lot of, I think every good player and guys who excel have pride in what they do, and they want to be out there.
Right.
And so me and Sark would have had a lot of questions. A lot of hard conversations. Me and Bob, the offensive line coach, I've been in his office. I'd have shared a few choice words for him, and we could have a fist fight to find out who the five guys are out there. Because I ain't leaving.
Right, and you're big enough that you would have been able to enforce your will on them.
I ain't leaving.
But let me ask you this, though. If you're running 100+ plays a game.
JJ, I don't care if I'm running 500 plays.
Fine.
I'm not coming off the field.
I think it's pretty clear doesn't want to come out.
Exactly. I don't see how I give into. Sark would have been like same thing.
I'm just telling you, if we're on offense, I'm playing left tackle. Yeah. That's my position.
Yeah.
And now, if you want to come take that, you better beat me out in practice. You better be better than me. But if I'm the best guy, don't you dare take me off this field.
Right. And last one, because I love talking offensive line with you. Left tackle versus right tackle. What's the difference? Besides the pass block?
I think less and less. Obviously, you're typically guarding the backside. But, the good quarterbacks, JJ, whether it's a right, they're not looking at the rush. They're looking down the field. So, they might catch out of the corner of their eye. I think for the longest time, the best pass rusher was that right defensive end. And the tight end lined up over the right tackle more because most teams are right-handed. And that still happens, so you have a little bit more help as a right tackle. You're kind of exposed all by yourself as left tackle. I think in today's game, especially at the NFL level, and even here, spread, a lot of passing, no tight ends as much, they're detached.
Right.
You need both tackles to be athletic. And then depending on where that great pass rusher runs, they still line up at the right end most of the time, so it's a little bit maybe more difficult for the left tackle, but I think the difference is less and less each year.
All right, Tony Boselli breaking down the offensive line. Good to have an ambassador back, JJ.
Ambassador.
Legend.
I got to get an autograph or something. Come on, man. Ambassador?
Do I get appointed by the president?
Exactly.
Absolutely. I assume that's who you're going to watch the game with right now.
I'll go talk to make sure. Do I get a ring or a jacket or anything? Ambassador.
Thank you, Tony Boselli. When we come back, it's another ambassador. It's the big man, Willie McGinnis, to be joining us on Trojans Live.